they tend to share more information on blogs. It's really kind of interesting. Anyway, so we got the self-monitoring is one sort of aspect of the decisions. Cultural expectations, what is expected within a given culture, whether it be a larger sort of culture like a Western or regional, or maybe each like Facebook, or each sort of avenue of SNS has its own sort of cultural expectations. There are gender differences that we need to appreciate. Folks take risk-benefit analysis or analyses of if I risk this information, what are going to be the benefits of that? And so obviously we want to lower the risk and increase the benefits. And then sometimes critical instances will impact. Sometimes people are stalked. Sometimes you get crazy people trying to find out all this information about you, or constantly contacting you, and we're saying stuff about you on Facebook that is might or might not be true. I don't know, but basically, this third principle is complicated. But basically, it just says that we do develop various strategies to try to deal with controlling our own personal private information. But those strategies differ depending on things like whether we are high or low self-monitoring, the various cultural expectations that we sort of grew up with, the gender expectation or gender differences, the way that we personally sort of figure out or think about risk-benefit stuff, and then whatever our own personal experiences have been with issues of privacy. I know I've had lots of issues where, in fact, one of the reasons why I now have a private Facebook and a work Facebook is to try to limit or try to create more boundaries. All right, so number 4, principle number 4 of this particular theory. So next slide, which is slide 8, and that is sort of funky here. This theory predicts that once information is shared, that it goes into the collective. And so then there becomes collective ownership. It's more of a we own this now than a I own this now. And so sometimes we do that sort of in a direct way. Sometimes it's not so direct. I have been told, or we have been told in certain work meetings and stuff like that, what we can disclose online, what we can't disclose online, and stuff like that. But this general idea that you also negotiate with others, whether implicitly or explicitly, about privacy management. And so once you disclose certain information and it becomes part of the collective, the we, you negotiate with those folks and create sort of rules and guidelines for how they disclose information that was once private information, but now it is public or collective information that everybody owns, but there's still sort of rules and norms for dealing with that collective information. And again, this stuff, as I say, is complicated. And there's tons of information in there about how this coordination happens. There's these things called privacy boundary permeability rules, and that is how easily it is to get into the information. There's privacy boundary ownership rules, privacy boundary leakage rules. So there's all these specific things that I'll let you read about. But I think the gist of all this stuff is, well, all of this is sort of on the bottom of page 24. And basically it says, from this instrument, that is, I think it is the larger sort of theory here, It is possible to assess boundary permeability rules that identify which individuals are more public or private about the depth and breadth of their their disclosures on social networking sites. In addition, the measure evaluates boundary ownership rules, assessing the extent to which individuals minimize or expand on others' capabilities to disseminate information within the social networking site's collective boundary further. So basically, like, some people allow lots of people to utilize their information. Like on Facebook, you can say only so many people can see this, or people can share this or can't share this, so that's what all that's about. And then boundary leakage rules isolate the characteristics of individuals sharing common interests, attraction, potential friendship development that contribute to an individual making decisions to engage in either more or less privacy management. That's horrible writing. I read that like 5 times. Social scientists, man, they can't write. Makes no sense. But in any case, the larger idea, the big picture here, is basically that principle 4 is this notion that once we disclose, it becomes part of the collective, but we still negotiate with the collective on how the collective information now is then disclosed to others, or how it can go out even further. That's principle 4, if that makes any sense whatsoever. You might be thinking, and this is on my delicious iced tea here from Hardee's, I would encourage you to go see Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It opens, I believe, this Friday. Sorry for that monkey business. One of the things that I always try to do is to make things incredibly practical. And this is a lot of big theory stuff that might not seem practical. That doesn't mean it's not important. But one of the things that I try to do later on in this particular record a lecture, in this particular PowerPoint, is to try to give you more practical things. So if this is like, I don't get this, I don't understand this, that's cool. Because sometimes, folks do these studies and they write stuff, and they're writing for other folks to do the same studies, and they just sort of talk to themselves. That's what academics do at conferences, and then nobody, the rest of the crowd, the other people in the world never hear about any of this stuff. People will publish stuff in journals, and maybe 2 other people will actually read it. So it's deep, hard theory stuff with lots of different, nuances to it, as I'd like to say, and lots of different little rules and blah 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 blah. But it's important information. But hopefully, what's always more important to me is that you get sort of the big picture, and then you find out, or figure out, or think about, or reflect on how you can take these big picture things and actually apply them to your own life. And so for this one, for instance, this sort of hard to unpack principle number 4 would simply be thinking about realizing that once you do give out stuff on Facebook or whatever, and it becomes more of sort of public ownership rather than your own personal private ownership, how then do you manage what happens to that stuff? Do you, on your own Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr or whatever, do you give other people free reign to do whatever they want? Or do you go through those privacy settings and try to control that? So that's something really important to think about, because, again, as a lot of folks say, once something's online, it's there forever. And so the more that you can control what other people can do with your information once it's in that collective, the better. Principle number 5, and this is slide 9. So basically, this idea again predicts, because we're all sciencey here, that owners and co-owners do, through whatever means, whether explicitly or implicitly, coordinate the flow of information. But if something happens, as I say, all hell will break loose. But they call it boundary turbulence. Boundary turbulence. So basically, I forgot I put this in here. So what? I did not wear a Speedo. I would never do such a cruel thing to other people. But what would happen if I had a setting on Facebook or whatever and say only friends could see this, and I put a picture of myself on vacation, and then somebody else as part of my collective then took it, yeah, I know, he's always on cue, and put it someplace else that I never intended it to be. What if somebody made a big poster of me in a swimsuit and put it in Cottingham Theater and made just really the entire campus sick? That's boundary turbulence. So basically, we need to be very, very careful about the process or what happens, or try to avoid boundary turbulence. And if boundary turbulence happens, then basically what they say, we rethink things. We redo our privacy settings. We sometimes we just totally get off Facebook. I've known tons of folks who have had these boundary turbulence, and I've had it with Facebook. I'm gone. So we just need to be very, very careful about sort of adjusting when all that stuff happens. So these are just random principles of this particular theory, sort of going back. This principle of my information, I sort of own it, and since I own it, I have the right to regulate it. And we all are different, so we all have different strategies for trying to control that information. And once it's out there, this is number 4, we try to coordinate with others, implicitly or explicitly, to how that information is used. And then if it's used in a way we don't like, or the collective doesn't like, but mostly us, there is that boundary turbulence, and we have to redo things. Yeah. That is called canine turbulence. He probably sees a cat in the backyard. Or a squirrel. Squirrel. So, now, after those principles are explained, the author or the authors try to apply all this to social networking sites and the disclosure practices of social networking sites. I'm sorry. Finnegan, please. I'm teaching. Thank you. So first, one of the things that I added here, this is not in your book, because, and I'm on slide number 10 now, the book sort of assumes perhaps that you've taken some sort of interpersonal communication class or something like that, and some of you might have, maybe some of you might not have, but the very idea of disclosure or self-disclosure is very, very important. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time here just sort of talking about what disclosure is. And obviously, disclosure or self-disclosure is giving information about yourself that other people don't know. Okay? That's what disclosure is. But theoretically, it is an essential component of any sort of relational development and relational maintenance. I mean, what do you do when you first meet somebody? Or where are you from? You know, and even those, I mean, there are differences depending on where you're from and everything like that. I'm not Southern. I've lived in the South for a long, long time, but I grew up in Oklahoma, and my parents are from the Midwest, or further up north, I guess Midwest. In fact, on Facebook, whether you see how Southern are you, I only got like 50-something%. And I hate sweet tea. I can't stand sweet tea. But I do like grits. But